reincarnation,
past lives,
the afterlife,
divination,
exorcisms,
witchcraft,
the unseen.
He's psychic medium Chris George.
And he's Victor the Voice Furman.
We are Second Sight Radio.
It's an awesome
next 2 hours. You're listening to dpmwickedradio.com or you're watching us on TeslaVoiceMedia.com. I just lost my train of thought there, Victor. Anyway, we have a really interesting agenda for you this evening. We have a gemstone of the week if we ever get to it. Chances are we won't. We do have the birthday segment, and I definitely have a Church of Second Sight tonight because somebody really twisted my friggin' onions, and I gotta talk about it. Vic, last week our guest, Stephen LeChance, I thought he was a fantastic guest. I really enjoyed him.
Absolutely fantastic guest, rather. And we had a little sad news from Stephen. Not sad, but a little troublesome news, and that on Monday he actually had a mild heart attack. And I'm happy to report that he's out of the hospital today, resting at home. And we send him all of our prayers and our healing energy and positive thoughts for complete recovery. He told a wonderful story from his personal experience of actually living into a home with his children that had terrible energy in it, and surviving that and moving forward and really becoming a fabulous paranormal investigator. So all our best to Stephen LeChance, and the full and complete recovery real fast and real soon.
Well, the truth is, Victor, he's going to live. And the truth is also that he's an attention seeker. I think he did all this to get attention, to have us mention him on the show again. You know, we do have quite a few listeners. And listen, you know how it is. It's just the way it is, Victor.
Chris, please.
What am I going to do? What are you going to do to me, Victor? It's been, what, over 2 years now we're together on the air. And you haven't run for the hills yet. So I give you a lot of credit.
And I give you credit for making positive changes in your life, Chris.
Oh, thank you.
Very well.
So my fan page is Psychic Comedian Chris George. Like I said, every week, if you like it, you get a chance to win a free reading. I give away anywhere from 6 to 10 a month, more sometimes. I mean, Jesus, people inboxing me every day asking me, you know, can I just ask you one question? And you know me, I'm a big old friggin' softy. I always help them out. So like the page, and maybe you get a free reading. Victor's fan page is Victor the Voice Furman, and our group page is Second Sight. All you got to do is go to Facebook, search Second Sight, and like the group, and we do a lot of great things in there. I think just the other day I put in a really great guided meditation. You know, we do a lot of cool stuff. You can ask us questions, we'll answer them. You let us know who you want as a guest, we'll get them. So, you know, the group page, people, I don't know what the hell you're waiting for.
And Chris, speaking of guided meditations, I'm just going to tell our listeners to give you a little advanced notice that Chris and I are actually going to be recording some of those guided meditations, and we're going to be conducting local guided meditation classes here in New York come spring. So stay tuned, and we'll tell you more about that when it happens.
Sounds good. And I think it's important to mention as well that I mentioned it on the Paranormal Lounge last week, but we didn't mention it on Second Sight, I don't believe. We're in April, we're doing a pay-per-view paranormal investigation at the Shanley Hotel. It's not booked yet. It's, you know, we're still working on it, but we'll be able to take about 15 of our listeners with us. It's going to be an amazing night. It's a sleepover. It's a great place, and we're going to have a really good time. So just keep that in mind, people. When we get more details, we'll put it out there, and we'll get you guys all set up.
Absolutely.
Anyway, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Birthdays this week. Howard Stern, Rush Limbaugh, LL Cool J. You know, I met LL, really cool guy, and couldn't have been more of a gentleman, I got to tell you. He's a fantastic guy. Martin Luther King, Kate Moss, Betty White, Muhammad Ali, Jim Carrey, Michelle Obama, Kid Rock, Steve Harvey, James Earl Jones, Maury Povich, which, as you all know, I've been on his show 5 times, and I was never the father. Well, you have Kevin Costner and Mr. Al Capone. Those are our celebrities' birthdays, and my close to the week is...
Wait.
Yeah.
There's one more celebrity birthday this week.
Who?
Me.
Are you kidding me? When's your birthday?
Saturday.
Look at that. Everybody is Victor Family's birthday. I had no idea, buddy. I would have been the top of the list.
Made it to 62.
Nice. And you don't look a day over 70.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate that.
And everyone knows Victor is one of my very close friends. And Vic, I send you out very, very warm wishes for your birthday. And I'll make sure I give you a call on Saturday as well.
Thank you very much.
The first of the week is this. Time is all we have. We can't fast forward it. We can't rewind it. All we can do is live in the time of now and make the most of it before it's too late. That's my first of the week. Now, Mr. Furman,
yes.
would you like to introduce our guest?
Chris, tonight our guest is Kate Chandra. Kate has been teaching personal and spiritual development for more than 20 years. She holds a diploma in herbal studies from the Australian College of Herbal Studies, and she's a registered instructor with the Society of Orthobionomy. And she has her website is called thehealingpresence.com, and she's the author of this brand new book, and it's called The Mindfulness Habit, 6 Weeks to Creating the Habit of Being Present. Please welcome Kate Chandra. Good evening, Kate.
Hi, guys. It's really nice to be here with you guys.
Wonderful for you to join us tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, very, very nice of you to join us. Victor, you know what, since last week was our first show of the year, and I took the first question for the first show, I would like you to take the first question for the second show.
Well, Kate, we'd like to have you tell our listeners, number one, what your background is and how you got interested in mindfulness and the practice of mindfulness.
Well, let's see. Excuse me. So I was an orthobionomy practitioner, and then I became an orthobionomy instructor. You know, once you start to have to teach somebody something, you have to examine it in a different way if you're going to explain it to them. And I was noticing that there were times that I was working with people that I was feeling that I was very effective, and there were times that I was working with people that it was not as effective, and I was kind of in a sort of a path to figure out how to sort of keep a lot more balance in my life. There was a lot of searching going on, and I ended up series of situations. Ended up going to see the Dalai Lama. Did not meet him, but see the Dalai Lama, and he was doing a Dharma talk. We have a very large Tibetan population in Minnesota, and he had come and he was going to do a talk on the teachings of the Buddha for this large Tibetan community, so he did it all in Tibetan. And he had a translator. He would talk for like 20 minutes in Tibetan, so there was just this sitting there with nothing. But it became apparent to me, I was completely enthralled by him, and it became apparent that the gift he has, that he gives the world, and that the gift he has is his gift to himself, is that he's completely himself all the time. And by the time I left, I said, I want some of that. So I started looking into meditation and mindfulness and being present, and I got a teacher. And my teacher helped me make the connection between the work I was doing and when it was effective and why it was effective and my meditation practice. And then I started seeing all these benefits in my own life. I started sharing it with my students, with my clients. And then I started teaching classes, and then it all sort of snowballed from there. And that's kind of the short version of how I got here.
Now, what is orthobionomy?
Orthobionomy was developed by an osteopath named Dr. Arthur Lincoln Paul, and what it is a way of moving and positioning the body in a way that reflects the person's preferences, their body's preferences back to them. So if something doesn't want to straighten, you would bend it more. That's kind of a super simplified version, but when you reflect the body's preferences back to it, it recognizes what's going on and self-corrects. So it's very gentle, and it's always going with the pattern of the individual. There's no protocol. It's always, where are you, this person right now, what do they need right now, and in what order? And again, that's really helpful because in being present, because you have to be able to be responsive to the individual that you're working on and read where they're at and where they want to go without an agenda of your own. And you need to be really present in order to do that. And that's where the two things come together.
So it's a form of mindful, energetic body work, basically.
Yeah, and it does have a very strong physiological component. It works with these little fibers in the muscles and these Ruffini endings in the joints and stuff like that. But it has a very kind of integrated feel. It's very conversational in a way. So, yeah.
And one more thing about the herbal practice. Tell us a little bit about your herbal practice.
Well, my background was I moved to Minneapolis to go to the University of Minnesota to get my MFA in theater design. And when I got out of school and I did that for a little while, I decided that I really needed to do something that was much more service-oriented, something that would help people. And so I ended up getting a diploma in herbal studies from the Absoluteleigh in college. And this was back in the pre-web days, so I actually did it as a correspondence course. I had an instructor that I talked on the phone with. I did a internship with a local herbalist, and that was how I got into that.
Okay, for people who have no idea what mindfulness is, could you explain that to us?
Yeah, sure. Mindfulness is very simple. It is just being in the present moment, so it's paying attention to the present moment. And what happens is that being completely in the present moment actually quiets the mind, and it brings your full attention to whatever experience you're having at the time. So the thing you're doing right now, that's where you're focused. That's all that's mindfulness.
Do you find that people have a hard time with that? Because I know, from my personal experience, I teach a lot of psychic development classes, and people have a hard time being in the moment. Their mind is all over the place. It's so hard for them to center themselves and ground themselves and, be in the here and now.
Sure, it's very hard for people. People are not used to it. Everybody's always thinking about what just happened or what's going to happen. They're planning or they're remembering. They're worrying about what's going to happen or they're rehashing happened. They've got a huge running monologue going on in their head all the time, and people just aren't used to being able to just let their mind be quiet.
That's right. I have a big question to ask you. I want to know, would you be able to talk our listeners through a mindfulness exercise?
Sure.
You're not ready for that, are you?
No, I'm just trying to decide which one would be.
Okay.
There are several in the book. I think maybe we would just do I start people out with breathing exercises, and so maybe one of those, maybe the square breathing or something might be a really good thing. It's something that everybody can use, and you can use it anywhere, so it'd be great for people to learn.
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, the reason that I do work with the breath a lot is because when you'll notice that when you are upset or stressed or sad or anxious, your breathing changes. And so just like the mind can change the breath, changing the breath can change the mind. So there's a few things that learning these breathing exercises do. The first is, again, it's a way to actually calm yourself down, clear your mind, get some of that anxiety or worry out of the way by changing your actual physiology and how that changes the mind. The other is that breath is moving, and so it's really easy for us to pay attention to that. It's simple, but it has enough interest because it's moving that we can pay attention to it. And then the other thing is that this is just enough moving parts, if you will, for someone to practice how to pay attention. And so that's why I like to start out with this 4-part, or the square breathing. It's called square breathing because it has 4 pieces. It has an in-breath, a hold of the breath, an out-breath, and a hold of the breath. And then it goes back around. So it has 4 pieces, and each should be equal in length. That's why it's called square breathing. So just to keep it simple, since we're working with 4, so what I do is I have people breathe into a count of 4, hold their breath for that same count of 4, take the same amount of time, that count of scale, hold it at the bottom of the breath again, and then start over. So could just take a couple deep, relaxed breaths and just get in touch with their breathing.
I just want to say, if there are any listeners now who are listening in their vehicles or operating machinery, please do not participate in this exercise. That's a disclaimer that I have to do, because I've done guided meditations online before, and somebody said, what about people who are driving vehicles? I said, you're right. Don't participate. Turn your radios off for 5 minutes, people, if you're driving a vehicle or operating machinery.
That's right. So letting your breath sort of return to just its normal resting speed and depth. And then let yourself completely exhale, and then inhale to the count of 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold the exhale, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, hold, and then just relax for a minute. And the thing that people need to pay attention to is, or if you're not used to doing something like this, you can feel kind of anxious holding your breath, and if you do, maybe you need to shorten everything up. Maybe you need to make it a shorter count, or you need to count up 4 faster, because all of the parts should be the same length. So if you find you're holding the breath and you need to let go of it sooner, then shorten everything up, tighten everything up, and then you can work your way back out. You want them to be the same length. And the more you do this, the more you realize that you don't need to panic about holding your breath, and you'll start to relax. But that's part of this mindfulness, too, is noticing, how am I responding to this? How's my body responding? How is my mind responding? And then accepting that and adjusting, and then being with it a new way.
And with practice, this becomes something that can become grounding, centering, stopping anxiety, putting you in a better place during the course of the day if you're having some issues.
Certainly it can, and it's also good practice in terms of just putting your mind on one thing. It has I try to get a lot of bang for my buck out of the exercises in the book, because I don't want to overwhelm people. I just want people to have a couple of new things each week to practice. That's the whole point. Is habits should be bite-sized, they should be easily integrated, and they should not be too difficult, and they should be rewarding.
And you can learn about that technique and many more in Kate's brand new book, The Mindfulness Habit, available wherever books are sold. And we'll talk more about that and her website in a little bit. Thank you.
Just a quick question. Before we give that book away, would it be possible for you to send it to me so I can read it?
Absolutely.
That's something I would love to read. And
Chris, I think
give it away.
I think that would be very beneficial for you to read that book, Chris.
I think so too.
Okay, so let's, we talked about the exercises. Now tell us a little bit about some of the long-term benefits of developing the mindfulness habit.
Well, one of the things that I have found is that having a quieter mind allows you to put a space between being reactive and responding. So you start to have some space. I like to call it a spacious mind. It's a really beautiful feeling to have a little bit more room in your head, and you can sort of see things coming and sort of deal with them in a different way. That creates a level of equanimity, too, which I love. Equanimity. It's a word that not everybody knows, but it means being okay with things as they are right now. It doesn't mean being apathetic. Apathy means I don't care. Equanimity means I can be okay with it the way it is right now without needing to feel like I have to panic or fix it. And we can have equanimity around good things and bad things. It's not just a matter of being okay with things that are problematic or difficult. When things are when we're very excited about things and we get kind of wound up, then there's that ability to sort of crash afterwards. And equanimity kind of allows you to keep both ends of that emotional range in perspective. So that's something that is an advantage as well. It allows you to be in the moment. In the moment is a place where you can't worry. In order to worry, you have to either be concerning yourself with something that's happened in the past or thinking about something that has happened, potentially going to happen in the future. It hasn't happened yet. We're totally making it up. We don't know what's going to happen, and yet at the same time, we can get ourselves so wound up about it. And if we come back and we're in the present moment, then there's no space for worry right here and now.
You know, it's interesting. I remember I used to attend seminars and retreats at a Zen monastery in upstate New York. And I'll never forget my first retreat. There would be a dining hall where everyone would gather for a wonderful vegetarian meal. And they had the Zen style of eating, which was a four-step style of eating, in which you would pick up your bowl, bring it to your face, inhale, take some of your soup, whatever it might be, and then put it back down again. You were not allowed to talk. You were not allowed to do anything except be in the moment of having that meal in a very focused and wonderful manner. And what was fascinating for me is how I started tasting things that I never tasted before when I began eating that way. It was very interesting that the mind was liberated and all the senses were liberated to truly be one with the food, so to speak. And what a wonderful experience that was.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, too, that I really love about being mindful is that reality is beautiful. It's beautiful. I mean, our lives are, you know, the texture of something, the smells of things, the sounds, the way your clothes feel against your body, the way things taste, like you were saying, and you really get a sense of how lovely things are when you can be in a moment like that. And it's very rewarding.
I got to tell you, I had a very different experience with that. When I was in the military, I remember being in basic training. We had to eat our food in about, I don't know, maybe 7 minutes. We had to drink 3 glasses of water before we could even touch our food. I had a hard time just getting the friggin' water down. I was so in the moment of eating that food that I didn't taste shit. So I don't know what you're talking about that everything tasted good, because me, I tasted nothing. I just need to put that out there.
Well, but you weren't really in the moment of eating the food. You were in the moment
trust
of
me.
down.
The only thing I could think of for those 7 minutes was getting as much food into this mouth as possible, because I knew if I did it, I would be screwed for the rest of the day.
Well, see, that's what you're doing. You were in the future worrying about not getting the food down instead of being in the present moment and enjoying it.
That's right, the friggin' future. You're absolutely right.
Chris, you must have been in a different Air Force mess hall than I did, because we weren't under that much stress when I was in the Air Force. So.
In basic training, are you out of your mind?
No, same place, San Antonio, Texas, Lockland Air Force.
Okay.
I was there.
They had what they called the snake pit. And I remember getting my food and being so scared to walk to my table because, God forbid, my eyes landed somewhere. There was like 7 or 8 drill instructors sitting at their own table called the snake pit, and they would call us over, and all 7 of them would get up and start screaming in the face, spitting all over me when they talked. It was friggin' horrible. But let's get past that.
Chris,
okay.
Because you have a New York accent, and even though I was from New York, I didn't have a New York accent.
I told you why they hated me, right? I told you what I said.
That's right.
I'll tell you real quick, Kate. I know this has something to do with the show, but just to talking about it, I'm going to throw it out there real quick. My first day of basic training, I had, 3 or 4 drill instructors screaming at me, spitting all over me. I'm not the type of guy that likes to get spit on. So I stepped back, wiped my face a little bit, they lost their mind on me. And the one guy tells me, you know what? You're the kind of guy that would rape my wife, beat my kid, and kick my dog in the ribs. And I said, no, sir, I don't believe in cruelty to animals. And with that, the next 11 weeks of my life were friggin' torture. But let's move on to mindfulness. All right? You say it helps with relieving stress. How does it do that?
Well, like I said, you're less likely to react to things. There's that spaciousness, and when you have that ability to sort of see things coming at you, see yourself feeling a particular way, feeling a reaction to a circumstance or a person or a comment, and you have the ability to sort of go, wait a minute, what was that really about? How do I really feel about that? And it's really these tiny little spaces, but they feel really big sometimes. And then you can sort of respond in a way that is less likely to escalate the problem. If you're someone who has trouble focusing, this is a really great thing. And certainly if you're somebody who has trouble focusing and you have stuff to do, that can cause a lot of stress, and that can help with that. Yeah, and again, taking worry out of the equation is a really important component of that. I find that I get along better with other people now since I learned how to do mindfulness practice. I have a much more accepting nature, and I don't experience those mood swings quite the same way too.
What about compassion? Does it change your compassion?
Oh, definitely. And I have a very particular definition of compassion. I know compassion, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about that word, and it's partly an etymological oddity, if you will. It's the fact that the etymology of the word means people see it as to feel with, so they think that they have to basically bleed with everybody else, and that's not it. It's really about being with someone else's feelings, not feeling them yourself. So, and so when you can have that sort of quiet mind, you can be present with other people and their needs and their hurt and their feelings without having to do anything that escalates it or creates kind of a feedback loop or anything that can cause it to sort of become something that it doesn't need to be. And then that once you get good at that, it's something that becomes really natural, and you can just sort of be with other people's pain without feeling like you need to fix it or be the resolution for it.
That's hard for people, especially empaths, you know. So many people that, like Victor, you and I, that we're involved with, very empathic people. I would imagine it would be hard for them. What do you think?
I'm sorry, asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, it's true. A true empath, someone who is a true empath and practices the type of compassion or the way of the form of compassion that Kate's discussing, is someone who can separate themselves from that feeling. Because, quite frankly, when I started on my practice many, many years ago, I was actually taking stuff in from other people, and I shouldn't have been doing that. I was processing their energy for them rather than being with them while they were processing the energy, which is what the real compassion is about, giving someone the space to process something without taking it on yourself. And so, yeah, in the beginning it was difficult for me, but it's something that I learned in my practice as I matured in the practice.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I think most people have a hard time with that, Victor. I'm sure, Kate, you would agree with that.
Oh, very much, and it's actually something that I spend a lot of time teaching my orthobionomy students, that getting out of their own way, getting out of having intentionality for the way other people's feelings should unfold, that kind of thing. There's a lot of programming that needs to be undone in order to be able to be in that compassionate place in that way. And there's a class I've taught about cultivating a healing presence, and the premise is that a compassionate presence is a positive act of healing, which sounds very simple, but unpacking that can take take a couple of days. So, it's kind of people sort of find it fights against their programming and against their ego and against their sense of what is necessary and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's actually that's book number, I think, going to be 3.
Kate, if I came to you and said I was having a hard time with this, other people's energies and whatnot, what would you tell me to do about that?
Well, I would. That's a very complicated question.
Right.
Because I would have to ask you a lot of things about yourself and about how you were experiencing things. But the first thing I would teach you to do is just quiet your mind. Right. And learn how to get quiet in your mind, and then teach you how to get quiet in your body. And one of the things that I use a lot in my book is body-centered stuff. I find that that's a very that's something we have all the time. A lot of people aren't tuned into their bodies, and our bodies will tell us a lot if we pay attention to them. And so I would do that. I would work with you kind of coming through that direction, and then we would see how that went and what you needed from there.
Her name is Kate Chandra, and her book is called The Mindfulness Habit. It just came out last week. 6 weeks to creating the habit of being present. Kate, please tell our listeners where they can get your book and also more about your work and how they can find out about it.
Well, they can get the book on Amazon, and there's a Kindle edition as well. And you can also get it, I believe it's going to be carried in a lot of Barnes & Nobles, the chain bookstores. And I always encourage people to go to their local independent bookseller because I'm a big fan of the local independent
Absolutely.
From Llewellyn, they'd be glad to send it.
And what's your website so that people can find out more?
TheHealingPresence.com. You have to say the and you have to say presence as in being present as opposed to getting a present.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, Chris is the present. We had him wrapped up in wrapping paper in the commercial for this show, by the way.
That was, I didn't get a chance to compliment you on that one, Victor. That was good.
Thank you.
That was really good. Victor every week does a commercial for our guests for our show, and I started out and he gives a little bio on our guests, and then it's like the zinger on me at the end of every commercial. And this commercial, he was talking about presents, but I was a present, and he had me with my face wrapped up in wrapping paper. It was actually very, very good.
I'm glad. And Chris, you know what? You're a gift to everyone who comes into your life and everyone whose life you touch.
You know what, man? I've been blushing all day. What's going on here?
There you go. And you're listening to Second Sight Radio on the DTM Wicked Radio Network, simulcast in video on Tesla@wokemedia.com. He's psychic medium Chris George. I'm Victor the Voice Firmer. Against tonight, the wonderful Kate Chandra. And we continue with the interview.
All right, Kate, I want to know, how does this improve focus?
Well, when you have a quiet mind, right, when you start to be able to take your attention and put it in one place, that's focus. It's just, that's how focus works. And if you practice it, it's like any skill. It's just another skill. And so when you practice doing it, it not only allows you to come and be in the present moment and get touched with your breathing or the feeling of your clothes on your skin, but it also then allows you to be able to put that attention on something else, like a task or something that is important to you, the person who's talking to you that you really feel like you need to want to give your attention to, something like that. So it's practicing mindfulness is practicing a skill, and that skill allows you to focus.
And how will this practice and this skill improve someone's quality of life?
Well, for one thing, if you're someone who has a lot of problems keeping your attention on one thing, I cautiously use ADD, and I, as someone who has had in the past problems with keeping my attention on things, I prefer to interpret ADD as meaning attention distribution different.
Very good, excellent.
That works.
Keep attention, I just distribute it differently. But that doesn't mean that isn't sometimes a problem. So what this does is it allows me to take my attention and put it, quiet in my mind and put my attention where I need to put it, when I need to put it there. Now, I think as a person who has that kind of brain that works that way, one of the gifts is that I make connections between things that other people don't make the connections between. And I haven't lost, but I have quieted all the chaos in my mind. And so I can hear, what people are saying. I can pay attention to what they're saying. I can pay attention to what's in front of me. And I can enjoy the moment so much more. I mean, I think that there's so much attention put on this sort of, if A, then B. If I practice this, then I'm going to get, this checklist of benefits. But really, it's just the joy of being alive just becomes so much more profound. And you have this lovely clarity. You become more flexible. You can go with both because of that sort of ability to be responsive as opposed to reactive. That makes you just nicer to be around. And if you're nicer to be around, then more people are going to want to be around you. And you're going to like being around yourself as well.
I started my practice about 30 years ago, and one of the things that I found, and this kicked in pretty early in the practice, rather, is that I was one who would in response to someone, I would be very reactive. If someone said something, I would immediately respond. I'd have to have my comeuppance or my comeback. And I found that in the practice, and as I matured in the practice, something might pop into my mind that I would have just spurted out years ago. I stop, and I don't say it. And I just allow the thoughts to process more fully and see whether it's pertinent to the conversation, whether there's a benefit, a positive benefit or not. Because if there isn't a positive benefit, there's no reason to say the words. So that's one of the byproducts and the quality of life that I've had since being on my practice, starting my practice 30 years ago.
Right, and that's what I talk when I talk about a spacious mind. It's a lovely feeling, that spacious mind, but it's also creates those opportunities that you were talking about, Victor, that ability to stop and go, wait a minute, is this necessary? Is this kind? Is this worthwhile? Is this me just feeding my ego? Is this me into something without having heard the whole story? And that space, having that space to make good decisions about all kinds of things certainly makes your life better.
Now, today in the business world, we talk about multitasking. Everybody's multitasking, doing many functions simultaneously. Are multitasking and mindfulness contraindicated? Is there?
Yes. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And because you can't give your attention to two things at once, right? So now, if you want to do two things at once, if you want to watch TV and eat pizza, watch a movie and eat pizza at the same time, knock yourself out. Watch a movie and eat pizza at the same time. Not everything has to be this profound exercise in mindfulness. Now, are you going to be getting the same relationship to the movie or the same relationship to the pizza if you were just doing one or the other? No, but that doesn't mean that pizza and movies together is a lovely combination that can make you happy. But trying to do too many things at once means that you're not going to do any of them very well. And that's another benefit is when you start to learn how to be focused and in the present moment, you do the things that you do better because you're giving your attention to them.
And that makes perfect sense. Funny thing, when I first started out with the whole being psychic and coming out of the psychic closet, if you want to put it that way, I did a lot of things. I still do. I do reading, I do healing circles, I'll lecture, I'll do the radio show, I do seances, I do exorcisms, I do it all. And I remember someone I used to date told me, you know what, you can't be good at everything. And for a long time I believed that, but I got to tell you, I don't believe that anymore. I can't agree 100% with that because I think if you're good at something, you're good at it, and it doesn't mean that you're taking away from anything else you do. I mean, Victor, help me out here. I mean, because like you, for instance, you're really great at counseling people. Okay, at the same time, when we do an exorcism, you're really great at doing what you do for me. Now, I mean, you can be great at separate things. I just believe it.
Absolutely, but that's not contrary to being mindful, because in each of those situations there's a different type of mindfulness or a different type of practice that comes to bear. So when I work with you in an exorcism, for example, my complete focus is on protecting you physically and metaphysically. That's what I work on. So I'm in the presence of being in your energy field and caring about you physically and metaphysically. When I do counseling with people, true counseling is listening. That's what true counseling is. Creating a space for someone to speak their truth, to allow that truth to come without judgment, without having to respond, without having to jump on everything they say or trying to fix them. It's listening and offering gentle suggestions when appropriate. And those are both mindfulness skills.
That's right. Yeah,
makes sense to me. You want to add anything to that, Kate?
Oh no, that's the thing is that as someone who cobbles together her living from a million different things, I can tell you that it doesn't matter how many things you do as long as you're only doing one of them at a time.
That makes perfect sense to me. So I want to know, does learning to be mindful take any special skills?
There are not any special skills. You don't have to have any particular talents. You don't have to be super spiritual or psychic or whatever. It's about living in the moment, and we all have that ability. Now there are everything we do we can get better at by practicing it, and that's what the book is about, right? Is helping you find things that you can practice so that you can get better at it. And all of the things in the book are things that anybody can do. Some of them certain people are going to find a little more challenging for whatever reason than others. That's why there are a lot of different options in the book, so that you have choices of things that work for you or don't work for you, challenge you in a good way, challenge you in a way that maybe you don't want to be confronted with right now. But everything in there is super accessible to everyone.
So you're saying anyone can develop this practice?
Anyone. If you're breathing, you can develop it.
If you're breathing and you have the ability to think, basically, right? Those are the two things that are required. And a heartbeat.
You're conscious and breathing on your own, then you're good.
Victor, I have to play devil's advocate here.
Go ahead.
This comes back to me saying how people say everybody in the world, is psychic. Everybody in the world could do this. I mean, what about crackheads? What about people who just abuse themselves all the time and they can't be in the moment because they're messed up mentally? You have to be of a sound mind to do this, I would think.
Well, I think that for a very, very small period of time, I could take anybody and get them to be completely present, even if it was just for 15 seconds. And then maybe the next time we could get them to be completely present for 30 seconds. And then the interesting thing to me would be to see what would happen to someone that was that messed up once you got them up to 2 minutes. Would they start to notice what it was like to be present and how they felt about that, and then maybe they didn't want to mess themselves up quite so much? I don't know. I mean, that's kind of an interesting sort of supposition. I do know that people who are in recovery, that they can find this practice to be extremely helpful.
Oh, you're next.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you have the next question.
But I just wanted to ask you a question. One thing when we're talking about quality of life, one thing that I don't think I brought up and I wanted to ask was that another benefit of this is that the physiological benefits. Why don't you talk a little bit about the physiological benefits of a mindfulness practice?
Well, excuse me a second. Sorry. The stress has a strong physiological effect. It actually shreds us from the inside out. It does horrible things to either our blood vessels, all parts of our body. It messes with our blood pressure. And part of the reason for that is that stress is basically it's a fight or flight response. And so when we start to become more in the moment, that fight or flight response starts to dissipate. And because we're not worried about, right? We're not thinking about the mortgage payment or whether a saber-toothed tiger is going to kill us while we're gathering berries, which is where the fight or flight thing comes from, is way back then. And, back then what would happen is, you might get chased by a saber-toothed tiger, and all the physiological stuff that is necessary for you to run and hide and escape and be safe kicks in, and as soon as you're safe, you go into what they call rest and digest. And one of the things that is messed with when you are in fight or flight is your digestion. Your digestion slows down. Your circulation changes, your blood pressure changes, all that stuff. And then when you go into rest and digest, it all resumes. But we have this kind of low-grade sort of worry culture, and so we never really get to go fully into rest and digest. And when you get your mind quiet, you get to go there. And your body gets a little break, and your digestion gets better, and your blood pressure drops, all that.
It's really interesting. One of the byproducts of my practice became the fact that I used to worry about everything. And I used to have, whatever situation I would go into, whether it be a work situation, a relationship situation, if there was an issue that was pending, I would always blow it up in my mind to the worst case scenario. And through the mindfulness practice, I found, and the expression that I use is nothing is as bad in my imagination as it works out to be in reality. And that's the truth. That some of the preconceived notions I had about worst-case scenarios were just products of my mind being all over the place. And being focused and centered and being mindful, I recognized that all these things that I built up as great traumas were actually nothing.
Yeah, you can see the storytelling starting to take place. The quieter your mind gets, the more spaciousness you have in your mind, the sooner you can kind of catch yourself before those things start to grow arms and legs and head.
Absolutely.
You know, Kate, I'm a big believer that when you meditate, 15, 20 minutes max. That's what I believe. You know, I know people that are into 2 hours worth of meditating. To me, it's too much. So when I teach people, I teach them to do it in 20-minute intervals. Now, does what you do, does this require a large time commitment?
No, actually, the point of this book is that actually we work up to sitting meditation. We start very much with things that you can integrate into what you're already doing. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, I think that seated meditation is challenging. It's challenging for anyone, and some people in particular. Second of all, a lot of the reason that people feel a lot of stress and anxiety is because they feel overwhelmed. They feel like they have too much on their plate already. So giving somebody one more thing to do, saying, okay, now on top of, you need to do your yoga and your stretching and your oil pulling with your teeth. It's like, it's like there's one more thing, and now we want you to sit and meditate for 20 minutes. And that's enough to just put people over the edge, right? So now what I've done is I know that there's a million different opportunities for mindfulness every day. And the two tricks are getting people to notice them when they arrive and knowing what to do with them when they do. So this plan is built up on teaching people those two things so that it becomes just an integrated part of their everyday experience.
Let's try a little experiment right now for our listeners. And again, if you're operating heavy machinery or you're driving a vehicle, please don't participate in this. Give us an example of something that someone might feel or experience and how being mindful can stop that from developing into something negative.
Well, let's see. How about being stuck in traffic?
Beautiful.
That's a great one.
Everyone hates being stuck in traffic. I hate being stuck in traffic. And I'm one of those people who I know that getting off and taking side streets and staying in traffic on the highway, they're going to take me the same amount of time, but I'd rather be driving than sitting, right? So I can get really anxious about that. So now you're sitting in traffic, you're basically not moving, or you're moving just a few feet every minute or so. This is a great time to stop and be mindful. You can practice your breathing exercise because you're still really present. You can practice being present with in a tactile way, maybe with the steering wheel. Maybe you could turn on a classical music station and just allow yourself to listen to the music in a fresh and different way and be really present with your sense of hearing. So, and all of these things are, now you're just being in the moment. And it doesn't matter that the moment is about traffic not moving. It's because that's not what it's about anymore. It's about being in relationship to your immediate experience in a much more interesting and a much calmer and a much less anxiety-producing way.
It's interesting. Prior to my practice, physiologically, I'd have bless you, Chris. Bless you. Physiologically, I'd have a different response to traffic, or in particular, people who are offensive drivers, people who would cut you off and such. My middle finger had this habit of standing up when people would do nasty things in traffic. And now my middle finger is actually very weak, and my breathing is very strong. So, yes, absolutely, there's a positive change when you practice mindfulness and don't allow the other things to get in there. Chris? Hello? Oh, I think we lost Chris. There he is. You're back. We almost lost you for a second. You froze. Well, we didn't froze. Chris.
I froze. What do I know?
Go ahead, Chris.
All right. I want to know, why would you want to develop a habit around mindfulness?
Because being present is as we were talking about before, you were saying, this is going to take a lot of time, and it's just, something that you have to set time aside for. And I really see this as a lifestyle. And in order to be a lifestyle and be something that is lasting and real, as opposed to just a list of techniques. I mean, everybody can sit down and read a list of techniques, but if you make it a habit, we've all done this, right? We've gone to workshops or whatever. We get all this information, and then when we get home, we really only retain maybe a third of it. And by the end of a week, we're maybe using one thing from this workshop, maybe, right? All done it. And so, so what this is making this part of a lifestyle. And the way you do that is by making it a habit. And
now, habits are something I once read, and I don't know if this is true, and you can comment on this. It takes 21 days to create a habit. Is that true or not true?
Yeah, you know what? That's something somebody said one time. It has no scientific basis. It's just something that somebody came up with. I think it's catchy. It's 3 weeks. Everybody's like, oh, you know what? If you do it for 3 weeks, you'll be able to do it. But and maybe there's some truth to it, but it depends on what the habit is, and it depends on what it is that you're trying to do and how you're practicing it, and that sort of thing. It's sort of I think it's sort of something that someone said once, and it just got repeated enough that everyone just sort of believes it as gospel now.
Chris, you okay?
No, I'm fine. I was going to say, I think, each habit is different. My ex-business partner smoked crack one time. He was hooked. He had a habit after one time, So I think everything, it's all time-related. It just depends on what you're doing.
Exactly.
And Chris, we'd love to see your face again. Can you get your image back? I don't have any video in there. Just have your picture.
Oh, there we go.
There you go. I have the picture of you as the godfather of psychic mediums with a cigar in hand and that look of superiority that you project in your business.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So Kate, going back to the question of habits, what are some techniques that help to build habits?
Well, habits, they did some research on habits, and there's things that they know make habit formation to be more effective. One is that they work best if they're in what I call bite-sized pieces, right? You don't try to make huge changes all at once. You try to tackle it in these sort of manageable parts. Making it manageable is really important, so that you just kind of go, oh, I just have to make this one small change. I just have to pay attention to this one small thing, and that makes it palatable, easy, and more integrated. The other thing is that they know about habits is that they have 3 parts. There's the thought, there's the action, and there's the reward. So every time you go to the grocery store, there's a nice bakery next door, and you go into the bakery and you get a cookie. Every time, right? And that's your habit. You don't even think about it anymore. You're like grocery store cookie, grocery store cookie. So the thought is, I am going to get a cookie. The action is, you go into the store and you buy the cookie, and the reward is you eat the cookie. So that's the 3 parts of a habit. So in the case of the mindfulness habit, I try to help people develop this by, again, small bite-sized pieces, simple things, just 1 or 2 exercises a week, and that we just gradually add to. But the other thing that I have people do is keep track of opportunities where they could practice these things, and even if those opportunities have passed, you write it down. So even if you go, oh, earlier today when I was in the car waiting for such and such, I could have been doing my breathing exercises. And you write that down, and that starts to get you to have your thoughts geared in that direction. Action, things like the breathing exercise that we did, right? So that is that's an action that you can do. It is something that if you practice it actually creates new neural pathways that then become habituated, become part of what your body expects. And there's a reward in that and this is another reason why I like to start with the breathing, is because the reward is very immediate, right? you start to notice your breath slowing down. You start to notice your body relaxing, and you start to realize that you get a little better at it really quickly. And so it has a lot of rewards. And then when something has a reward to it, you're more likely to want to do it again the next time. So that's part of this whole habit creation as well.
Okay, well, I want to know, how does this book help create this habit? And could you give us an example or two?
It's set up, like I said, as a 6-week program. So the first thing I have people do is to get themselves some sort of a journal, whether it's your tablet or your phone nowadays. People don't carry little books, or you might want to go and get one of those little very spiral bound notebooks that we used to write our assignments in when we were kids in school, or something like that, and keep track of what you're doing and writing those things down. And keeping track of, this was an opportunity that I missed, or that I didn't miss that I made use of, and this is how I felt practicing before I practiced this exercise, and this is how I felt afterwards. And reflecting on that creates more of that thought, and it helps reinforce the reward aspect as well. So you start showing your subconscious deep breathing equals feeling good, right? So you practice your breathing, you're listening, you're walking, the various things that I have in there, and you start to notice that it's a pleasant experience. And so then the next time you say, oh, that's a pleasant experience, you're combining that with this other component, which is looking for opportunity. And then they start to match up, and that's where the habit starts to happen.
Wonderful. Wonderful. We're talking tonight with Kate Chandra. She's the author of the new book, The Mindfulness Habit. Oops, sorry about that. That was not very the book. 6 weeks to creating the habit of being present. And Kate, please tell our listeners where they can get your wonderful book.
Of course, Amazon, and they have a Kindle version as well, and chain bookstores, and as I said before, your local independent bookseller. You can also get it at LlewelynBooks.com. I don't remember what their website is, but Llewellyn Books is the publisher, and they were the ones that you need to order it have your bookstore order it. They're good way to do that is to have them contact the publisher. And I encourage people in the book to maybe put together a group of people, maybe like a book club kind of thing, or a group of people at work that maybe meets once a week at lunchtime or something like that. There's a lot to be said for when you're doing something like this, having that combination of support and accountability. And so I think that can be really powerful. So that's a way something to consider when you're ordering the book is, get a few and enjoy it with friends.
And please tell our listeners your website again.
TheHealingPresence.com.
Wonderful. Kate Chandra has been our guest for this first hour. She's going to come back in the second hour and talk more about the mindfulness habit. Chris and I want to make an announcement. Next week, we're going to have, during the first hour, Alexandra Holzer. And if her last name sounds familiar, her father was the amazing and famous Hans Holzer, Dr. Hans Holzer, who is basically the father of the paranormal investigation. And January 22nd would have been Hans Holzer's 95th birthday. So we're having Alexandra on, who has actually carried on his practice and has done some many wonderful investigations. There's books that she's written about her, and we're going to be talking about that during the first hour. But for those of you who have been, who are in the paranormal community and either have been inspired by the work of Dr. Hans Holzer or have a story to tell about Hans Holzer, we'd like you to come on the second hour and share your thoughts about him. So if you would either inbox Chris or myself, private message us on Facebook, let us know if you'd like to join us on the second hour and how Hans Holzer inspired your work in the paranormal field. Please do so. We'd love your inboxes as soon as possible so we can plan to have you join us the second hour next week during our show. Chris?
I'm not going to tell the story now, but I have a great story about Mr. Hans Holzer. And I met him. I actually went to his apartment, I think about 2 months before he passed away. And I got to meet Alexandra. I don't know if she's going to remember me. I hope she does, because I had a great conversation with her and her husband. I think it was her husband. And he told me some stuff that nobody knows about, that he just felt, comfortable enough with me to tell me, which I won't bring up. environment, I would tell you in private. But some really interesting things, and Hans had his very famous book. I think it's called Ghost. And it's a very thick book. It's an amazing book, and I brought it with me. And he had a very hard time signing, but he signed something in my book that just blew me away because he had no idea who I was. And what he wrote really blew me away. And I'll tell the story next week, but you want to talk about inspiring somebody? Just a few words that he wrote in that book to me, which looked like scribble. You know, it was very hard to make out. Actually, his daughter is the one who actually interpreted it to me because I had a very hard time reading it. You know, he was very, very sick at the time, and his words are what inspired me. So I have a very cool story to tell about the whole next week.
Coming up, Second Sight Radio next week. You're listening to Second Sight Radio. Chris George, Victor the Voice Furman on DTN Wicked Radio, and it's simulcast in video on TestalWolfMedia.com. We will be back for the next hour. Stay tuned, everybody.
Face, sprinting in forever kind of race. And it's like losing before you get to finish, where you can only close your eyes and maybe wish you can get there before you become one of the restless that gives in. So up and down, welcome the good and bad, 'cause that's where the sulky face, sprinting in a forever kind of race. It's like losing before you get to
The paranormal,
Ghosts,
spirits,
demons,
reincarnation,
past lives,
the afterlife,
divination,
exorcisms,
witchcraft.
the unseen.
He's psychic medium Chris George.
And he's Victor the Voice Fireman.
We are Second Sight Radio.
Paranormal,
Ghosts,
spirits,
demons,
reincarnation,
past lives,
the afterlife,
divination,
exorcisms,
witchcraft.
the unseen.
He's psychic medium Chris George.
And he's Victor the Voice Fireman.
We are Second Sight Radio.
Sandra, okay?
Yeah.
And we had a fantastic first hour as always, and I'm sure the second hour will be just as great. Victor, Church of Second Sight tonight.
I'm ready, baby.
All right. You know, a lot of people friend me, okay, on Facebook. And I friend most of them. You know, we have people in common. A lot of them will inbox me and say, I listen to your show, and I love you guys. I love Second Sight, and can we be friends? And, of course, I would say yes. Well, a girl friend of me, I would say about 3 weeks ago, her name, I'm not going to say her name, her first name was Debbie. I think it was Debbie Douchebaggery. But her name was Debbie, and was that wrong, Victor? Anyway, I'm trying to be in the moment, Victor.
Yeah.
You know, so 3 weeks ago she friends me, and we had no contact. She didn't comment on anything. She, there was no conversation. You know, and there are people like that, every month or two I do a cleaning of my friends list, and that's somebody that I would have gotten rid of because we don't, there's no interaction whatsoever. She inboxes me today. No interaction ever. She inboxes me today and says, I'm going to basically paraphrase. She basically said that I'm a piece of crap because I'm a hypocrite. How dare you write such beautiful things on your fan page, get everybody's hopes up, and then on your personal page write such crazy things. And I thought, I don't like crazy things. I like funny things, first of all. I said, and everything I write on my personal page is for shock value. It's to have fun. I said, that's my personality. I said, when I'm Chris George the Psychic, I'm very, pretty much Chris George the Psychic. I'm very serious. I do what I have to do in that realm. But then when I'm just Chris George, me, as you know, Victor, I like to have a good time. I like to make people laugh. I feel that when you make people laugh, they're happy. I mean, I think it's very simple. I want laugh to be very healing. I get just as many inboxes on my fan page where people say, Chris, your words of wisdom really get me through the day. And, I wake up and the first thing I do is go to your fan page to see what you wrote. And I love that. But you know what? I get just as many inboxes on my personal page saying, Chris, I go to your page every single day. It's the first thing I do because I know I'm going to smile. So how does that make me a hypocrite? What, because I'm psychic medium Chris George, I have to be all airy-fairy and metaphysical, with my head in the clouds all the time, and, this spiritual being 100% of the time? I'm sorry. If that's what you're looking for, people, I'm not the guy, okay? When I do my psychic work, I believe I'm the very best there is, anywhere, anytime. I'll put my skills and my abilities and my gifts up against anybody, okay? That being said, me, the person, me, Chris George, just a regular guy, I am just a regular guy. And I do have a personality. And it comes out. I mean, if you can't handle that, you know what? Delete me. I couldn't care less. Because for every person that deletes me, I get 5 and 10 and 15 friend requests a day. It's irrelevant to me. It's just ridiculous that you think that you have to put me, pigeonhole me into this one person. Okay, I am one person, but there's many facets to me. I'm not always psychic medium Chris George. I don't live my life psychically. I just don't. I'm psychic when I need to be. And all the rest of the time, I'm just Chris George. And I do that because what I find, and this might be disrespectful to a lot of the older psychics, and if it is, I apologize. I find that the older psychics are all screwed up in the head. And that's because they live their life psychically 24/7, 365 days a year. It's very hard to be psychic all the time, okay? Because what I find is, the lines kind of they kind of like blend together. And the older psychics have a hard time distinguishing the difference between what's psychic and what's not psychic. And they go crazy, okay? I see it. I have a lot of psychic friends, okay? I don't want to be that guy. I like being psychic when I'm supposed to be psychic, and I like being me when I'm supposed to be me. That's my church of Second Sight. Vic, anything you want to add to that?
Well, I'll just make a couple of comments, Chris. Number one, I think that people have to recognize that we can be spiritual, and we can be teachers, and we can be mentors, and we can also be fun and have sense of humor. I'm a perfect example of that. Most of the time when I do these shows with you, I'm very serious, and I'm on message, and I'm on point. But I can also be a crack-up, and some of the best humor, Chris would tell people that I'm a wild man when it comes to humor. When I'm in my funny mode, I'm funny, and I've been told I should have been a comedian, but Kathy says she's rolling on the floor, laughing her behind up there, because she knows me personally. But I will share something, and people who expect someone to be one way all the time are missing something very valuable. And that is, I've shared this wisdom before. I had a very, very fortunate experience about 35 years ago. I was attending what's known as a salon at this women's house in Brooklyn, and she was well in her 80s at the time. And I told her that I was a little conflicted between developing spiritually and also being just a regular, everyday person. And she said something that I'll never forget. She said, God does not require that we be holy, but God would love for us to be whole, meaning embrace everything that you are. Don't deny any part of yourself. And as long as there's nothing mean-spirited, evil, or negative about you, embrace everything. You know what? And if you have something mean-spirited, evil, embrace that, and then process it, work with it, and to turn it into something positive. But that was so important when she said that to me, because that said to me, be the person you are. Be you. Don't be anybody else, just be you, because that's what you're meant to be. And I think that's what people don't recognize, is that they expect us to be a persona, and that not embracing everything that we are. And if that's the case, and then the other part of that, Chris, is what was she actually reflecting about herself, the things in herself that she's uncomfortable with in saying that to you? And I think that's a big part of it, too.
You know what? Very well said, Victor. And, you always add so much to the church, so thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Amen.
All right, you want to start off the second hour?
Well, Chris, let's welcome back our guest, Kate Shonda. She's the author of the book, The Mindfulness Habit, 6 Weeks to Creating the Habit of Being Present. Just came out. She did her first book signing last weekend. Why don't you tell us about that book signing experience?
It was super fun. There's a local bookstore called Majors and Quinn, and, there are just places in everybody's town that when they go there, it's kind of one of their happy places, and Majors and Quinn is one of my happy places, and I know that they do a lot of stuff with local authors, so I went to them and said, hey, I'd like to do an event here, and they said, well, would you like to do your launch party here? And I said, yeah. And it was a blast. It was standing room only. I bought, as my boyfriend pointed out to me, about 20 liters more wine than I actually needed. 25, maybe. But then I got a little jazz combo, and it was such a lovely party, and it was so lovely to share my book with people, and I got such an enthusiastic response, and people were asking me a lot of questions about where I was going to go next with things, and it was just, it was lovely. It was a very, very nice time. But again, an independent bookstore, because why? They're awesome.
And Chris and I are big advocates every week when we have an author on with us, when we have an author on with a new book. We always say, you know what, you got your Amazons, you got your Barnes & Noble, but we encourage people to go to their local bookstore because, quite frankly, it's part of the local economy. And if we don't support our local economy, we're not going to have local economies.
Right.
We help the neighborhoods and the communities to thrive by going to the local bookstore. And if you go to your local bookstore and say, I'm looking for a copy of Kate Chandra's The Mindfulness of It, just released by Llewellyn this year, and they say, sorry, we don't have it yet, say, I want to buy it from you, I want to patronize you, I want to support my local economy, get me a copy, please, or get a few copies, put them on the shelf, because my friends and I are going to buy this book from you. So that's our little toast to the local bookstore and supporting your local economy.
You're here.
There we go.
You know what's amazing, Victor? The last, I would say, 4 or 5 guests have all said the same thing. You know, they will say, you know, support your local bookstore. I love that. People are really putting that out there. It's important, and I'm glad you do it every week.
Chris, I got to say that I attend, when it comes to New York, there's a thing called the DEA, which is basically the Booksellers National Convention. And it's in the summertime, usually in June. And when it comes to New York, it's in New York every other year, and I always attend. And what I love to see is you see the big places, the big publishers, you see the Barnes & Noble, you see the Amazon, but you see hundreds of these people who have local bookstores coming around, checking with the publishers, seeing what's coming out, getting their catalogs, and putting their orders in for their books. And that's what it's about, the bookseller. It's about the local bookseller, and really it's such a pleasure to be part of that community.
Yeah, well said, well said. All right, well, let's get back to the interview. All right, Kate. Can you give an example of the 3 parts as they show up in the book?
3 parts of
3 parts of creating the habit.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I talked about the thought, action, reward thing, right? That those are the 3 parts of the habit creation. So, I start out with the breathing, and that's a great one because it's so basic. It's really something you can put your finger on. The action is to practice these breathing exercises. There's a couple of different ones. We just practiced the one here, and then there's the reward, right? That sort of like, hey, I feel really good because I did this breathing and I have more oxygen in my body. I am more relaxed. My mind is a little clearer. My shoulders aren't climbing up into my ears anymore. Maybe even your tummy isn't quite so wound up. And you go, well, that's cool. And then you start paying attention for other opportunities to practice it. Because, first of all, that's part of the assignment. And partly because you said, hey, that was a nice thing to do for myself, so maybe I'll look for another opportunity to do that. And it creates a loop, right? So when there's something positive, when there's a reward, it instigates that first part again, that thought, that like, I want to find another opportunity to do this. And then we add, we'll add 1 or 2 or 3 little things each week, and some of them you'll like, and some of them you won't. And I ask you to practice all of them, even if you don't think you like them right up front, because maybe you'll discover you like them, or you'll discover what part of them is the reward for you. Right. And the whole time we're looking for opportunities, and we're recording opportunities. We're developing thought, action, reward over and over and over again.
Let's give our listeners one more example of this. Let's perhaps another breathing exercise, or just another thought, action, and reward.
Okay, well, one of the ones that I really like, that one you can use everywhere, is I like to use the senses. And so I break them down and we use different, at various points, I will use a sense as what we call an anchor. An anchor is the place you put your attention. An anchor on a boat is the thing that you drop in the water, and it keeps your boat from drifting, right? It keeps it kind of in one place. So when you put your attention on an anchor, again, it's that sort of, if you think of your mind as like a boat, bringing back to that anchor is what's going to keep it from floating around. So another anchor is touch. And I have an exercise where I take people through and I have them close their eyes and I talk them through touching their clothing and their skin, their face, and just having an experience around touch. And then we talk about how you could use that in a way that is more public friendly or more user friendly or more circumstance friendly. And so then people start looking for opportunities where they could bring themselves back to the present moment. They're like, what could I do? Oh, I could do touch. And they'll maybe take the surface of the chair that they're sitting on, maybe the upholstery, and they'll touch that. Or maybe the sleeve of their jacket, or even just touch their face a little bit. And the next thing about touching your own skin is, of course, you get to feel it from both sides, right? You get to see what does it feel like for your fingers to touch your neck, and what does it feel like for your neck to be touched by your fingers. And that's a pleasurable experience that brings you back to the present moment and is easily learned, it's easily executed, it's something you can integrate anywhere. And then you start looking for opportunities to do this. Oh, I've got this. Oh, hey, I've got 2 minutes here, and I'm feeling a little uneasy, or maybe you're even feeling that you don't have to save these for when you're feeling stressed or uneasy in some way. You can practice them anytime. It's nice. It shouldn't be something that you do circumstantially only when you feel bad. It's something you should do anytime you have the opportunity and just it occurs to you. And so that's what that sort of creating that habit is about, is, hey, I've got a space for this thing to happen, so I'm going to make it happen.
For those of a certain age, you remember Carol Burnett and the Carol Burnett Show, and she always had this thing about grabbing her earlobe. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
You know what that was for her?
It was her saying hi to her grandma, wasn't it?
And it was her way of saying hi to her grandma, but it was an anchor point for her to get her focused into what she was talking about at the time.
Okay. See? Very good example of that, yeah.
Look at that, but you really are welcome. No,
Chris, it's called being old, Chris. That's what it's about.
You're not old. You're not old. All right, so I want to know, why did you create this program?
Well, I'll hold up my arm here. Can you guys see that? See the tattoo on my arm?
Higher,
a little higher.
There we go. Looks like Sanskrit.
It is Sanskrit. Well done. It is the word Prajnaparamita, which, among other things, means the mother of all Buddhas. Mm-hmm. And I really want to create a world that's better for everybody. I want to take care of everybody. And I find that when this is a lovely way to take care of people, to teach them how to take care of themselves and to bring themselves into a place where they're feeling good. And then what happens is when you stop being reactive and you start being a force for calm and you start being someone who can not accelerate circumstances that are stressful or dramatic or intense, and you hold a state of calm, it's kind of like a hurricane hitting cold water. It's sort of the energy sort of dissipates, and everybody sort of calms down a little bit. And what happens is eventually we create these ripples. And I think that it would be really amazing to live in a world where these ripples of, like, there's all these little ripples that get started by these people who are practicing this, and then eventually we end up in a world where everybody's just a little cooler-headed, a little more present, a little more compassionate. I think that's amazing. I mean, as you know, my phrase that I came up with is the cleaner the pond, the happier all the fish are, right? So if we all do our part to keep our little part clean, then everybody has a nice, happy, calm, clean, wonderful place to live in.
You know, it's interesting. We talk about on shows. We talk about it. I'm getting an echo. Somebody's speeding back here. Okay, that's better. We talk about energy, and we talk about walking into a room and immediately either being attracted to a person or repelled by a person that we have absolutely no knowledge about, that we may or not clearly see. So it's not a visual response, but we're sensing we're walking into their energy field. Each of us has this energy field around us. And if we create an energy field of positivity, of kindness, of compassion, it's tangible, it's palpable. People can feel it and feel it collectively. And if everyone in this world were in this practice, creating this huge energy field of kindness, of compassion, of caring for one another, well, what happened in Paris last week wouldn't happen. What happens in various places around the world wouldn't happen. People would be feeding each other instead of beating each other. It would be a much, much better place.
Yeah, that's a fact. You know, but you've said this before, and it's true. I just find that I don't know if that's going to ever happen, and it's sad because I think that would work. I think the world would be a much better place. But there's so much anger, and there's so much ego, and there's so much of the negative out there that, you know, it's hard for me to see if that's ever working. I wanted to. I would love it to. I think it would be amazing. But I don't know whether it'll ever happen.
The story is we cannot change anyone else. We can only change ourselves.
That's right.
Each person, it has to start, let there be peace on earth, let it start with me. That's what it has to be. It has to be each one of us making the effort.
You're right, but I'll tell you something. You know, before I started really getting into the whole being psychic and accepting it, and I find that since I've accepted who I am as a psychic medium and surrounding myself with like-minded people, I find that I've become a much nicer person, and I find that the people that I associate with are much nicer people than I used to associate with. So maybe that is a start. That's what I'll say there.
Absolutely. You're listening to Second Sight Radio. He's psychic medium Chris George. I'm Victor the Voice Furman. Our guest tonight is Kate Chandra, and this is the DTN Wicked Radio Network video simulcast on TeslaWolfMedia.com. Kate's book is called The Mindfulness Habit, 6 weeks to creating the habit of being present. And Kate, again, please tell our listeners about where they can get your book and about your website.
My website is thehealingpresence.com. There is a link on there that will take you to Amazon, or you can just go to Amazon. There aren't a lot of Seances in the world. I'm pretty easy to find on Amazon. And there is a Kindle version of the book. And, of course, you can go to your local chain bookstore, or, as we have said more and more and more times tonight, your local bookseller would be glad to help you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Chris?
Well, Kathy has a question in the chat. Do you want to go with that?
Go ahead. Take it.
All right, let me see. What does it say here? It says, question, is it possible to have a wall like that without the negative stuff?
It's not about not having negative stuff. It's how we respond to negative stuff.
Yes.
And this is the work that helps you learn how to be able to be in a healthier, responsive state as opposed to reactive state. We can't change circumstances. We can only change how we respond to them.
Absolutely. I got a share for that, and I think I shared this. I think I shared it on the Paranormal Lounge. I don't think I shared it on Second Sight. Without going into a lot of details, I had a friend many years ago whose husband had a very rough childhood, and he was very insecure. And his way of dealing with anything that confronted his ideology and his way of thinking, his way of life, was to react by screaming and shouting and cursing at people. And there was a dinner party that we had one night. There was 3 couples, and someone had challenged one of his beliefs in terms of politics. And those of us who are really not political people might have just brushed it off and what have you. But because he was so anchored in his personal belief systems, it triggered him. And he stood up and started shouting at the top of his lungs at the person who made this remark, to the extent that his wife was like ready to crawl under the table. Other people were like turning away and moving away. And most people would have gotten up and walked away. And I let him finish, and when he finished, I got up, I walked around the table, I threw my arms around and held him very closely against me and whispered in his ear, I love you just the way you are. He started crying, and it actually began a healing process, which changed his life. So what does that mean? I'm not making myself into, I'm not saying this to be boastful. I'm saying that if we react to negativity with a different response, that's how we start making the change.
That's right. That's right, Victor. You want me to take the next question?
Please do.
All right. I want to know what makes this a good fit for people who feel overwhelmed or spread too thin. That's a great question.
So, the idea of why I created this book, well, the program, I created this as a class originally, and because I felt like so many people, I wanted them to learn how to have a mindfulness practice, but everything seems to be about sitting their butt on a cushion. And I knew that was just adding to their overwhelm. And this is something that you can do no matter where you are or what you're doing. As you progress through the book, we start doing tasks mindfully, and you start learning how to it's not just a matter of sitting or touching your clothes or taking time to breathe. It's actually once you start to develop the skills around those things, then you can start doing things like, what is it like to do the dishes mindfully, for example. And so it's not anything extra, it's actually using the things that you're already doing and noticing when those opportunities are and making them opportunities instead of problems or things that you have to do. There's some opportunities where you get to do something. And so it's like if you instead of having a gym membership every day, you made sure you worked on the fourth floor and you took the stairs every time you went up and down, and you did isometrics at all the stoplights, and you made a point of climbing on the jungle gym with your kid every time you went to the park, and instead of trying to carve out time to go to the gym, if you have kids and a job and all this stuff, you make do with what you already have available. So it's a lot like that.
You know, it's interesting. The movie, if those who remember the movie, The Karate Kid. So this young character played by Ralph Macchio Jr. And Pat Morita, who was his sensei and mentor, and he said he wanted to become this great martial artist. He said, how do I start? Chop wood, wash car, carry water. All the basic, mundane, very simple things. But if you do them in a mindful way, you're changing your focus, you're changing your structure, which will develop you into the greater martial arts, the greater anything. And I think that's you know, you had mentioned washing dishes. You can be mindful doing anything, provided that that's your focus at the time.
Exactly. But I don't have people start with that because so many people just don't even know how to be even the merest bit mindful. So we again, like pieces, let's just learn how to breathe. Right? Let's just learn how to breathe and pay attention to breathing in a very structured way. So we have a structure to pay attention to, and we have a breath to pay attention to. We have two big things to pay attention to, so we can really have something good and solid to rest our attention on. Let's start there. And then we can work out the things that are more complex or nuanced from there.
Now, by the same token, you talk about this practice not really being or not having to be meditation, but many of the techniques you're talking about are similar to techniques that are used in preparation for meditation. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. They actually, some of them are meditations. The walking meditation, which is different from the mindful walking, which comes later in the book, is a meditation that is a very, very old style of meditation. Mm-hmm. And it's just walking and paying attention in a particular way while you're walking. And the reasons that you do that is because it's been around for a long time for a reason. It's really super useful. It's also a way in meditation practice, traditional meditation practice, of taking your focus from sitting on the cushion out into the world. But it's a bridge, and bridges are two-way. And so in that particular case, it's different from being out in the world and bringing your attention internally into your body. So that is a meditation that we use. But it is, yeah. So definitions are tricky, and sometimes labeling things just gets in the way and becomes more of a hassle than is necessary. But yes, that's traditionally a meditation.
Well, Kate, mindfulness is really hot right now. What do you think if this is true?
Well, I think, like anything, everything just happens to catch fire for whatever reason. Sometimes there's a really good reason. Sometimes it's just sort of a culmination of a set of circumstances. I think that His Holiness the Dalai Lama is very media savvy and in the best possible way. And I think what he has to say in the persona that he presents to the world is appealing to people. I think that there's an sense, a lot of it comes from Buddhism, and I think people thought Buddhism was very weird for a long time, and maybe a little woo-woo or a little, a little too boring, I guess. And I think people feel less that way about it as well. There's a sort of an openness to that. I think that the rise of yoga might have something to do with it. My goodness. Is there a city in this country that doesn't have a yoga studio every 2 blocks? Come on.
No, they're all over the place.
That's crazy. And so I think there's some of that. And I think that just the word is out that it's a good thing. I think, you put all that, I mean, all that other stuff is all well and good, but the word is out. It's good stuff.
Considering the number of anti-anxiety prescriptions that are being written in this world today, the number of sedative prescriptions that are being written in this world today, the amount of alcohol that's being consumed in this world today, all of those things, I'm not saying that people shouldn't enjoy an occasional glass, like Chris, an occasional shot or something like that. If that's something occasional and in moderation. But all of these things, all of these artificial means of settling the mind and creating mindfulness and creating presence aren't necessary once one begins and really gets into a mindful practice.
Well said as always, Victor.
Kate, how have you done any work, just out of curiosity, with any addiction groups with mindfulness exercises?
I have not personally. I have worked with some clients who've been through 12-step programs and who think that it would be really, really great for me to bring some of this to people who are in some of those programs. I personally know people who have combined 12-step and substance abuse awareness with mindfulness, and they find it to be really a really lovely, nurturing, and reaffirming way to pursue their way of handling their addiction.
And what about mindfulness exercises or mindfulness coaching in a hospice type situation?
Well, we get so strung out about death, and because it frightens us. And part of the reason that it frightens us is because we try to imagine what it's going to be like, and we get this low grade worry. And when you're in a hospice situation, what people really need is for you to just be present with them, and the best way to learn how to be present with other people is to learn how to be present with yourself first.
Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Well, the first thing in order to be present with somebody else is you have to be able to bring yourself back to the present moment. Sometimes I talk to my students, my orthobiotomy students, about this, because I see them starting to kind of get spun out and starting to worry or think, am I being effective, or what should I do next, or whatever. And I can help they're not with the person they're working with anymore. So what I'll say is I'll say, okay, stop and spend 10 seconds coming back to being present with yourself. And at first they seem horrified by this, and they say, but then not, they think, that somehow that the person they're working on will know that they've stepped away, as it were, or that they're not giving their attention to that person. And I said, first of all, if you keep going without coming back and getting present and getting back into the moment, you're not going to be doing anybody any favors anyway. So you may as well take the 10 to 30 seconds that is necessary for you to do that. And when you come back to yourself, they're going to sense that you're back in the room, that you are back in the moment, and they are going to relax. And you can keep your hands on them, and they don't have to know what it is that you're doing for that 10 to 30 seconds, but it's all good for everybody. And so, and then once you're back in that present moment yourself, now you can bring your attention to somebody else without having to worry about all the chatter and nonsense that's going on in your own head, and just be present. And you don't have to be present for someone else. It's really not any different from being present for yourself. It's all just being in the moment. It's just that maybe your attention is on them instead of on something instead.
I've been involved and teaching an energy healing practice since the late 80s. And one of the first things that I was taught, and one of the first things that I share with my students, is that before you step into someone's energy field to do any work at all, you absolutely have to be clear and present. Because anything that you have that's negative, that's not positive, that's not for the benefit of the client and the benefit of yourself, is going to be carried with you into that energy field unless you leave it behind. So you have to clear, center, be mindful, be ready, and then do your work. And if you can't get to that point, you are doing a disservice to the client by entering their energy field.
I think also you can be present with the fact that you're messed up, and I think that's okay too. I think that it's okay to be messed up, and if you're present with that and okay with that, then I don't think that's a problem being in an interaction with other people. I think that, again, it's that how are we reacting to our circumstances that is the problem. Are we fighting it? Are we denying it? Are we exaggerating it? Are we accelerating it? Are we turning up the volume by making a big drama out of it, or are we just noticing that we're in a state of discomfort and displeasure and just allowing ourselves to be with it? And again, one of the things that happens is it's like the hurricane hitting cold water. Eventually, it just starts to lose energy. But authenticity is powerful, and I think it's okay to step into space when you're just being authentic. That's all.
Great, great. All right, I want to know, what's the difference about the approach to mindfulness that you take in this book as opposed to some of the others that are out there?
Well, we've talked about the fact that there seems to be this very common approach to meditation and mindfulness that people want to get people right under the cushion. I like to say there's two categories. There's intensive and immersive, and then there's another one that's sort of this quick and dirty, goal-oriented, so the first kind, intensive and immersive, is this sort of, you're going to go do a 12-day retreat, you're going to sit on the cushion, you're going to learn how to breathe as your anchor, and you're just going to do straight confident meditation until your ears bleed, right? And then eventually you're going to get it. And that does work, but it's not very fun, and it's not something that everyone has the resources to do. The quick and dirty, goal-oriented approach is the one that I'm seeing a lot of starting to develop here and there. It's one of the things that some serious meditators are sort of reacting to, which is the do this so that you will achieve X. And that, I go into a whole chapter in my book about that, about when you bring intention to a mindfulness practice, that it creates a lot of problems, including some playing. Are we there yet? As I say, have I reached that goal yet? Am I there yet? Am I there yet? Am I there yet? And it's sort of prescriptive, and I don't think that that's a very useful approach to mindfulness in the long run. And this sort of lies in between. I like retreat style sitting. I'm actually the Tenzo, the head cook at the Zen Center where I sit. I spend a lot of time with a lot of people in long retreats. I think it's a wonderful thing. I also think it is not for everyone. I know it is not for everyone. And I know that people like to know why they're doing something, and they like rewards. People like presents, right? They like a cookie at the end of dinner. So the things that I teach people all have a little cookie at the end. There's that sense of reward for everything they do. And I think that that's really important. I think that we need to feel like we're getting something immediate out of it, but it's just a cookie. It's not anything sort of complicated necessarily. And it's all so bite-sized. It's really just nothing that I'm asking people to do that is going to take them more than a couple minutes at any given time. And I think people find that manageable, and I think that's really important.
Kate, how can your readers get the most out of your book, The Mindfulness Habit?
I think they need to follow the instructions that I give them in the book, and it's very clear. And it seems like I'm so the person that's likely to do this, so I can tell you, don't skip anything. If it says get a little journal, think long and hard about what kind of journal you'll actually use. Is it going to be a little notebook? Is it going to be whatever? Get that and do that, and do the homework. Do the homework, do the homework, do the homework. And none of the homework, again, is going to take you any time at all. If it takes you more than 10 minutes a day, I'd be really surprised. I really like, whenever there's something that's a little challenging for me, I reframe it in my mind and I say, I get to do this, instead of saying, I have to do this. So, I get to do my meditation homework. I get to do my mindfulness homework, as opposed to saying, I have to do my meditation homework. So, and I don't even do that with things that I kind of don't like very much, but I realize that being able to do them is kind of a privilege, so I'll say, I get to do this. And I find that changes my brain a little bit. And as I was saying before, if you can get a group of people together, your book club, or people you work with, or your neighbors, other moms, for example, or the people that live on your block or something, and you can get together and meet on a regular basis, there's two things that happen. Accountability is such a powerful motivator. I find it to be an incredibly powerful motivator, and knowing that you're going to need to meet and discuss things with other people is going to encourage you to keep going and to focus and just do your homework. And also, when people have victories and struggles, they have to share. That is what I like to say.
You mentioned journaling. Journaling is so important. Why is writing things down or journaling so important to reinforce the practice?
Because it makes you stop and say, this was the moment, this is what it was like, this is why it would have been good. It's to go, I probably should have done it then. It makes the thought more whole. It makes it more dimensional. It puts it in context. And the more kind of context and weight and texture and reality that you can inject into each of these circumstances, the more real they become, and the more you can sort of notice when they reoccur, because now they have a richness to them that your memory is going to be able to get back to, and you're going to be able to see them, the things that are like those circumstances again the next time, much more easily.
Thank you.
You have a follow-up, Victor?
No, you go ahead with 20.
All right, I want to know, Kate, what's next? What is the next step?
Well, it's the end of the book. Like I said, I bring up sitting meditation, and my hope is that some people are intrigued enough that they want to try it, and they want to start to investigate that. And as they do, I really encourage them to find, if it's possible where they live, to find a teacher or a community that they can be supported in. And there are online sanghas. Sangha is another word for community. There are online sanghas, and you can find other people who will help support your sitting practice as well. And I'm really motivated to take this to the next level in terms of kind of the two things that I talked about. One, how do we use this as a way to change our relationship to circumstances and to events in a way that makes us a more peaceful presence? How can we be like the ripples that come when a leaf lands in the water? how can we be that person without an intention for changing others, but by changing ourselves, knowing that we just are making everything around us better. So that's one of the things I'm working on, that and the healing presence, the compassionate presence is positive active healing. I've done some workshops on that, and I'm starting to pull that material together. So I'm kind of interested to see where that's going to go as well.
Chris, we have been blessed tonight with Kate Chandra. Kate is the author of the new book, The Mindfulness Habit, 6 weeks to creating the habit of being present. And Kate, one more time, let's share with our listeners where they can get your book and find out more about your work.
I am at thehealingpresence.com, and there's a link there for the book, and that will take you to Amazon, where you can buy the book in paperback or in Kindle version, or you can go to your local bookseller and have them carry it for you as well.
And I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I was going to say this was a great show, and I thought you were a fantastic guest, and I'm really looking forward to reading your book. Nick, you got to get it out to me whenever you can, and I'm looking forward to reading it. I know the people in the chat room want to pick it up as well, so that's awesome.
Absolutely. And again, your local bookstore, go down there and say, I want a copy of The Mindfulness Habit by Kate Chandra. And if they say, we don't have it, tell them, get a hold of your Llewellyn distributor, get copies of the book, because me and my friends, we're going to buy it. We're going to form a mindfulness group. We're going to support each other. We're going to make this world a better place, thanks to Kate's book, The Mindfulness Habit. Kate, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, guys. You were a blast.
You have a great night. You have a great night.
Good night.
All right, good night. Hey, Victor, we have like 7 minutes left.
I just want to share again that next week we're going to be honoring what would have been the 95th birthday of Hans Holzer, the father of the paranormal field, really the father of the paranormal field. His daughter, Alexandra, is going to be on during the first hour of the show, and she's going to be talking about her dad, about the work that she does, carrying on his work, his life. And then on the second hour, we'd like our listeners and our friends who are in the paranormal field and have been inspired by the work of Hans Holzer to join us and share their stories about how Hans Holzer inspired them and how the paranormal field has been shaped by the work that Hans Holzer established. So we're looking forward to that show next week. Just inbox Chris or inbox me and tell us your Hans Holzer story, and let's arrange to have you come on the second hour to honor the career of Mr. Hans Holzer. And what else, Chris? What else did you want to say? Do you want to talk about Paranormal Lounge?
Oh, yeah. Tomorrow night we have author Patricia Gaggett, and her book is Karmic Alibi. Should be a really interesting show. I've heard that she's a great guest, and I'm looking forward to it. Vic, will you be with us tomorrow night?
Yes, I will be with you tomorrow night.
Outstanding. I think this show's going to be right up your alley. So, actually, every show is up your alley. See, that's the difference between you and I. I have my skill set. I know what I know. But you freaking know everything.
Mindfulness, and we haven't done a gemstone in a while, so I selected a gemstone which enhances mindfulness. And that gemstone is called Labradorite. Wearing or carrying Labradorite allows one's innate magical powers to surface. It enhances the mental and intuitive abilities of clairvoyance, telepathy, prophecy, coincidence control, and assists in communication with higher guides and spirits in accessing the Akashic records, psychic readings, and past life recall. It provides an ease in moving between the worlds and permits a safe and grounded return to the present. As a workplace stone, Labradorite brings out the best in people. Here's where the mindfulness aspect comes in, making work life more congenial. It encourages courtesy and full attention to the customer, and assists part-time and temporary staff in becoming fully involved in the company and mindful of the company and the customer's needs. The Labradorite tempers the negative side of our personality, the traits and actions that rob our energy and may produce depression or shame. It assists in reducing antisocial, reckless, and impulsive behavior in children, teenagers, and adults who are easily led into trouble by others, and may aid in detoxifying the effects of tobacco, alcohol, and to a lesser degree, hard drugs. Labradorite develops the hands sensitivity, making it useful for physiotherapists and all those who use the power of touch to heal. And that's our gemstone of the week, Labradorite. Chris?
Yeah, man, that was great. And you know, it's been a while since we've done a gemstone. I'm glad we got to do it tonight. And it's been too long. I believe in gemstones. I have so many of them. I had about 50 of them stolen from me, Victor, which really pisses me off. But I still have a nice collection, and I believe in them. I use them. When used properly, they're effective. I believe they are. I know a lot of people don't believe in them, but I do, and I love the segment. So we need to make sure we keep doing them.
And once more, Chris, I want to thank our guest this evening, Kate Chandra, the author of the book, the new book, brand new, just came out last week, The Mindfulness Habit. 6 weeks to, and I want to do, the reason I'm reading this each time is because I blew it in the commercial and realized it to left of the back. 6 weeks to creating the habit of being present, The Mindfulness Habit by Kate Chandra, available where books are sold, where great books are sold.
And for those people listening to Second Sight tonight, I just want to remind you, tomorrow night from 10 to midnight Eastern Time, we have another show called The Paranormal Lounge. It's myself, Victor, and River Wildfire Moon, and it's a good show. We have a really good time with it. And get in the chat room, listen to the show. It's a great freaking show. If you like this show, you'll like that show. Now, that being said, tomorrow night I'm putting River on the spot, Victor. I have a little game set up for her. She has no idea about this. She has no idea what I'm going to do. And I'm putting her Wildfire on the spot.
Very good. We'll look forward to it tomorrow night. Thank you all for joining us on the DTM Wicked Radio and TesLaWolfMedia.com. We'll see you next week on Second Sight Radio. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.